This is the story of the monk and the chestnuts. So, once there was a little small town village where there were villagers living inside of it. So they grabbed the chestnuts off the tall chestnut tree, but they left the chestnuts at the top for the birds to grab.
But one selfish old man who wanted the chestnuts off the top of the tree. So in the morning he climbed up the tree and got stuck.
Help! Help! I'm stuck up a tree.
So the old man shouted and shouted, and all the villagers came, and a monk...
For the last 3 years now, I've been working with pupils from Sir John Barrow School in Ulverston, telling them stories, enthusing them about stories, but most of all, helping them to develop their own storytelling voice, to empower them as storytellers. So I've been working with Year 3, Year 4 and now Year 5. So it started off 3 years ago just with Year 3, and I've had the wonderful privilege of working with that year group now for 3 years in a row. That happens quite rarely, I find, in schools' work with storytelling. So it's been a fantastic experience, and it's just wonderful to see those children grow in confidence, in skills, blossoming as storytellers through those years. With Year 3 from last year, they're now in Year 4. They've done 1 year of storytelling, so they also have a base of experience upon which to go forward this year. So I've been giving them a toolkit of techniques for learning a new story, preparing it, so stripping away all the detail put onto the story by the previous teller, i.e. me, with the stories that they've been working with, so that they're free to put their own detail into the story, put their own flesh on the bones of the story. I've been giving them tools to adapt the story, play with it, and to build a filmic world of the story in their own minds. And the wonderful thing about storytelling is that as the storyteller, you're completely in charge. So you get to decide who the characters are, what they look like, what the places in the story are. And when you're actually telling a story, you're walking with 1 foot in the world of the audience and 1 foot in the world of the story. So I've been giving them a series of tools they can use to help them to navigate those two paths. So then we've been looking at tools for actually telling to the audience and relating to them, and using your body language if you wish to, and lots of other tools besides speed, volume. There are so many things you can play with.
One day there was an old man wandering the streets of the city, and yes, you guessed it, he was extremely poor and he was homeless, so he had nowhere to live. And then one day he came to the end of a street, and it was a massive mansion. It was so big you can't even see the sun. So he knocked on the door, and then an old lady greeted him and said, "What are you doing here on my street?" said the old woman. And the old man said, "Well, maybe please can I have some food? Maybe stay for a few days. That would be really nice, please." And the old woman said, "Of course you can. Get off of my property right now." So the old man did what the old lady said and crossed the street to this little cottage, and he knocked on the door. And then an old lady opened the door and said, "What are you doing here, nice man?" And then the old man said, "Maybe can I stay maybe at your house for a few days? Maybe get some food, something like that, please?" And then the old woman said, "Of course you can. Whatever we eat here, we share."
So after the day, he stayed for one night. It was time for him to go. So he gave her a present. "Whatever you do now, you'll keep doing it till sunset." The woman had no attention to what he just said, and she made a T-shirt for her oldest son because it was his birthday. So she grabbed the box and opened the lid and started pulling and pulling and pulling. She kept pulling until her hands, her hip, and then her house bursted with beautiful silk. She started making more clothes and more clothes, and then there was too many, so she started selling them and made more money until she had the same amount of money as the old rich lady next door. The rich lady got really jealous and wanted to know how she got all that money. So she went to her house and said, "How did you get all this money?" So the woman said, "Well, this old man, he gave me a wish, a present, because I let him stay at my house." And then the old rich woman realised it was the old rusty man on her doorstep yesterday morning. So she ordered her servants to find a man. The man was old, so he didn't go far. One of the servants found him and said, "Please can you go to my master's house? I'll be sacked if I don't." So the old man said, "Fine, I'll do it for your sake."
So they all wandered back to the rich woman's house, and the old man knocked on the door. And the rich woman said, "Of course you can't come in, you have nowhere to live." So they all shared their food, but the old man really didn't like the way that the rich woman treated her dogs and her servants. So he said, "I must go now because I've got all I need and all I wanted." And the rich woman said, "Don't you have anything for letting you stay here?" And the old man said, "Yes, I do. Whatever you do now, you will do till sunset." So the rich woman thought, "If I go upstairs to my treasure chest and count all the money, it will keep on coming and coming." And the rich woman went up to the attic. She blew on the chest. She sniffed. And she went, "Ah, ah, ah, choo!"
And she did that all day long. The end.
That's great. So that's what we've been doing, and I think you're going to be able to see some examples of work we've done over these last years, the stories that I'm telling them this year, and the work that they're currently engaged in with those stories.
2, 1. Okay, so your hands might be right up here for one. Okay, so over there. Okay, so to actually do those gestures that go with the story. If we can get it working again later on, I will show you that, but we'll just see if we can just have a quick game. So you're thinking, put yourself into the role of a storyteller, somebody who's telling a story. Okay.
This year I was going to go in, as I have done in the previous 2 years, about once a week in June and July, working with them until they're ready to go and give performances of their stories at the Coronation Hall in Ulverston as part of Furness Tradition Festival. Well, obviously this year not only could that performance at Furness Tradition Festival not happen, but my visits into school couldn't happen either. So instead, what I did was I worked up the stories for them here at home, and I filmed them just as I'm talking to you now via the camera. Those stories went out to them in their homes, and then later on also in school when some of them were back. And once each year group had 6 stories they'd heard from me, they got to choose one that they really wanted to tell, one that grabbed them, one that they fancied playing with and telling further on. Most of them are folk tales, so the stories that year 5 are working on, they're different. They're Norse myths, and I'll come back to that in a minute. But year 4 and year 3, they've been telling folk tales. And of course there's no ownership there. They get changed as time goes on, and each teller adds their own particular slant to the story. So I've been really encouraging them to do that. So they've heard folk tales, year 5 have heard Norse myths. Now they've been working with me for 2 years already, and they had Vikings as their history topic, so it's a no-brainer to do Norse myths. But also the Norse myths, they are just a little bit more complicated, a little bit lengthier, and they don't quite help you to tell them in the same way that quite a lot of folk tales do. So you have to really work with them a bit more. So that was a great level of challenge for the level at which these children are at, because they'd already had 2 years of storytelling. They did wonderful storytelling last year. So it's a perfect step up for them. So after that, what I did was I filmed here in my house some workshop videos for each of the year groups. For year 4 and year 5, with whom I've worked before. I knew what I'd done with them before, and we went through those processes again, reinforced the tools they already knew, and then I gave them a few extra things to work with. And for year 3, of course, it was a whole new journey for them.
I want you to be, first of all, that storyteller that Dominic was talking about, the one who's a little bit shy. Okay, so to act shy, well, you might, I might fiddle with my, when I clap my hands, I would like you to look up and kind of give the people near you a little bit of eye contact, look quite bold. Okay, off you go.
So that's what we've been doing, and now they're all busy working with these stories. Usually what I've been doing with all the year groups over these years is dividing them into small groups, maybe a group of 4. And part of that is about manageability. If you've got a class of, say, 32 and they divide into groups of 4, you can work with each of the groups. If they're all telling a story by themselves with 32 children, for one thing, it's quite hard to get round them all and see how they're all doing individually. For another thing, of course, it's quite effacing to tell a story completely by yourself. But also, it's very hard to put on a performance because 32 individual stories takes an awful lot of stamina from the audience. But this year is different anyway. We can't have a performance, say, at the Coronation Hall. So, and they can't really work in groups in the same way. They have to be a bit physically distanced, and some of the children are still at home. So actually this seemed like the perfect opportunity for them to get to do what they otherwise would never be able to do, which is to tell a story entirely by themselves. They can suit themselves. They can choose a story without worrying what the other people in their group want to tell. And they can have the whole journey of the story as they're telling it from the beginning to the end. And that's a wonderful thing, actually. It's lovely telling as a group. You've got the energy of your teammates, as it were. But there's also a wonderful thing of going on the storytelling journey in front of an audience, with the story, from one end right to the other.
Stop, whoever you are, just stop. He had to use 2 hands for a bigger star and he threw it at the man. The man fell out of the tree. You better run, you little monk. And the monk was never seen and heard of again. The end.